And now I would like to close our security course by giving you some helpful tips on managing your office. You might already know about things like background checks, credit checks, drug testing, segregation of responsibilities, and video cameras, but you might not have thought about it within the context of hiring a bookkeeper. These things can be very affordable, and I'm going to suggest just a few services that are available that you might be willing to look into that might be helpful for your business. All of these things significantly decrease the likelihood of fraud or any kind of record falsifications, and I can honestly say all of the clients that I've had that have implemented all or most of these never had an employee falsify the QuickBooks records or steal from them using QuickBooks. I would like to name some reputable and very affordable background check services that are available on the internet. There's truthfinder.com, checkpeople.com, there's beenverified.com, and then this next one is specific for employment and employment background checks, goodhire.com. There's also Checkmate, which is known for searching public records and probably is the most affordable and most efficient one. You'll have to call each of these companies and find out what's involved regarding time sacrifice and cost, and decide for yourself which one, if any, is right for your business. Companies that offer a free credit report are all over Google and all over the internet. But if you're going to do a credit check on a potential employee, you do not want to do a hard inquiry. Hard inquiry means you're checking their credit report to determine if you want to lend them money. If that's the type of inquiry that you run when you check their credit, that might have an adverse effect on their score. You want to make sure you run a soft inquiry. And the way to do that is to have the individual voluntarily sign up for one of these free services while you're with them, and actually watch and see their credit report as it comes into them. Because if they're viewing it themselves, it's considered a soft inquiry and it will not have an adverse effect on their credit score. And that's something that you can explain to them during the interview or the hiring process. It helps sometimes to understand the motivation of someone who would steal or use QuickBooks to steal or at least falsify some of your records. In the old days, we used to study how to keep bookkeepers and people who work in large companies from being able to commit fraud and get away with it. In a large company, this would be the diagram of segregation of duties. That means that the people working there who have physical custody of the assets must be different and in a separate department from the people who physically record the financial records. And those people, both the people who have the custody over the assets and the people who do the physical recording into the bookkeeping records, should also not only be separate from each other, but separate from the people who give authorization to actually use the assets for certain things and authorize certain transactions. However, in a small company, authority might be impossible to separate, just for practical terms. But you could still keep the record-keeping people who are the bookkeepers using QuickBooks separate from the people who have physical control over the assets. In a large company, the people who have physical control over the assets might be the manager, because they might be able to use the equipment to run the company, or the treasurer. They might be the official people who are responsible for physically managing the money, such as bringing the money to the bank, physically writing the checks, and so on. If you're curious how a small company would be able to separate these things, you can follow some very simple rules. Never allow the bookkeeper to write and mail checks. That's something that the treasurer and manager should do, not the person keeping records. You should never let the bookkeeper go to the bank to deposit the cash, checks, or anything else. You should never let the bookkeeper count the cash register cash or be the petty cash manager or distributor. That's like asking the fox to guard the henhouse. That's like asking the elephant to guard the peanuts or the crack addict to guard the medicine cabinet. The last most important point is that you should never let the bookkeeper use the company debit or credit card. Doing any of these things gives the bookkeeper, the person who uses QuickBooks, physical control and access to the money. And if they're also keeping the records, you might be in trouble. The most important thing you have to remember is that you cannot let the bookkeeper log into the bank account online. If they can log into the bank account online, they will have the ability to authorize transactions and even pay themselves money and record it in QuickBooks as a normal business expense. You can't let them do that. I know that some banks give different levels of permission for users and passwords for logging into the same bank account. So if you're in a situation where you absolutely have to let the bookkeeper log into the bank account, you can set up an arrangement with your bank that the bookkeeper can only log in and look, but the bookkeeper logged in under that username is not authorized to make any transactions, especially payments. In most cases, it's probably sufficient to get an affordable camera just as a deterrent. If you're absolutely sure that you want to be able to capture the screen content at the moment the person is in front of the screen, you can do it, and there are cameras out there, but they're more expensive. You would have to do a Google or some kind of search engine search on the different types of cameras and companies that are out there and devote a little time to calling up the companies and describe what you need to price it out. Remember, not all of these suggestions are perfect for everyone. You have to do a little bit of research yourself, make some phone calls, and decide which ones are right for you. Thank you so much for taking my security course, and I wish you good luck in business.